We got DJ Bien-Aime and we got Cody Stoots, DJ with ESPN, Cody Stoots with HoustonFootball.com. Thank God the season is finally here because this was the most boring training camp for a good reason that I've ever been around because all the starters were nailed. You have all your starters, you got pretty much all your backups, and if you're missing a backup or two, you have like your third string guys. So that's 44 roster spots. Then you got punter, kicker, long snapper all taken care of. So we're talking about like 4 roster spots that and then none of those guys are truly impact players. They might come in to play down the stretch only because it's all about staying healthy in the league. So now that we're here, all that said and done, how you feeling headed into week 1? What are your thoughts against the Colts, Cody?
I mean, I love this matchup. It's a potential marquee matchup later in the season. I don't know that it's as marquee in week 1 as it could have been somewhere else in the schedule, but it's a great way.
The final week last year?
Yeah. It's a great way for both these teams to start because this is potentially the AFC South for the next few seasons.
Right.
I think those are the 2 best coaches right now. Right. I know Doug Peterson's got a Lombardi, but he's not the same guy. Okay. So I think these are the 2 best coaches.
He doesn't have Nick Foles anymore.
It's 2 really good rosters that, there's some holes here or there for both sides, but I love this matchup, and we'll find out if it's going to be the next, the top 2 quarterbacks. I don't have a high level belief in Anthony Richardson. He wasn't
I don't know how you would.
He wasn't consistently successful at Florida. He's never stayed healthy. I mean, this is a guy that got hurt dancing before a game on a Friday night.
That's true.
Okay, in college. All right? He played 4 games last year. I don't know how anybody gets super excited about him until he puts it together for at least half a season. And then we know what the Texans bring to the table. And the sort of the DJ – the budding rivalry between the players between these 2 teams.
Right. Yeah, no, this is going to be very interesting. I mean, I think both sides can go into feeling like these are things that we can really exploit versus the other team. Like the Texans can go into it and think they don't have anybody that can guard our receivers, period. Like they can legitimately feel that.
4 of them.
Right.
With Dalton.
Right. And CJ's best games outside the 10 million bucks game were against the Colts, right? Like I think his total number, was 648 yards passing, with 4 touchdowns, 1 interception against the Colts. I think week 2 he set a record. Well, he didn't set a record, but he came really close to Matthew Stafford for most passing yards for a quarterback of that age, which was like I think 384.
That was his coming out party.
Yeah, that was like his real coming out party that
like,
people don't really realize. Like that one when I was like, oh no, this is gonna be a rookie of the year because for you to throw for almost 400 yards in your second start, people talking about garbage stats and that. No, that's not a thing for me unless it's like 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, you down by 1 million points. But they weren't, and he almost made it a game. Mm-hmm. So there are matchups that he can exploit. But on the flip side, there are matchups that the Colts can feel like they can exploit in the sense of if they can consistently make it 3rd and longs, they can feel all right. Even though our secondary isn't great, our front should have enough time to get to their quarterback. And then again, like if you flip it, the Colts had success running the ball against this defense last year. What is with AR, what with JT in the last game? Because again, if JT doesn't get hurt, the Texans don't go to the playoffs last year because he was going crazy in that last game. So they feel like, all right, we should have success running against them, even though they added Daniil. But they kind of got, in my opinion, took a step back on the defensive tackle spot because Sheldon and Malik are really good defensive tackles. And if they can get their running game going, they'll be able to put AR in second and manageable and third and manageable, so he's not going to be in the 3rd and longs. So it's going to be a really, really interesting chess match to see who can make the other side play left-handed.
So that's what I'm excited for because Jonathan Taylor, I did this last night on the 6 o'clock show, has been unbelievable against the Texans. He's averaging like 135 yards a game against the Texans.
Wow.
I mean, he hasn't been able to be stopped. And Anthony Richardson's the wild card because you can't plan for him. You don't know if he's going to have what could be a really great, wild, weird game of scrambling and ad-libbing and improvising, or if he's just going to be a really bad quarterback that day. And that's kind of where I am on Anthony is like boom or bust, Twitter highlight quarterback type of dude. I don't know that the Texans are in a position that they want to face this team week 1 because no Danico Autry, no Christian Harrison. Like that makes me nervous.
To be fair though, they are as healthy as they could have been.
But like the 2 guys that you want against a rushing attack.
Sure. I mean, Autry and Harris not being there certainly an issue. But I mean, they spent last year's first game with backup safeties. I mean, they were playing backups a ton at the end of last year when Taylor was having a lot of success. Like, they are as close to the 11 guys they want on the field to start a game on defense as they may be all season. And so that's got to be a little exciting for the D'Amico Ryans and the defensive staff because, like, we got our like Jimmy Ward's going to be there. Jalen Petrie in a new position is going to be there.
Right.
Like Azeez Al-Shire's on the team. Like we all think Will's going to play. Will Anderson's going to be there. Daniil Hunter's good. You know, they've got guys that they feel like, while not as touted as the defensive tackles from last year, that handle exactly what they want the defensive tackles to handle. Like, yeah, there's a little issue. Like, would I feel better if Christian Harris was there? Certainly, but they've got what they need, I would think, to at least have a good shot to slow down Jonathan Taylor in the rushing game.
Jokes aside, I would rather play with backup safeties than with those two dudes out, though. Because, like, the backup safeties can come down and make, like, a play.
Right.
Like, after it gets past the defensive line and then the linebacking core.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Will on that. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You know, losing
Get with it.
losing Nico Autry and obviously no Christian Harris against this type of offense, right? They're gonna try to get Anthony Richardson on the edge, right? And Christian Harris, what he's really good at is going sideline to sideline because he has like 4.4 legitimate 4.4 speed, right? So losing that and then replacing that either Henry To'oTo'o or Jake Hansen, you know, that isn't necessarily like
a step down.
Yeah, that's not ideal.
Yeah.
But
and are we really trusting Mario Edwards at this point? Like, he's been around the league, hasn't been very successful anywhere. I know a lot of you guys that know football really well are higher on him than I am, only because I'm in this camp of, well, you haven't done it yet, so like, why am I going to just buy in now?
Will hates veterans.
Yeah,
he's like, if you've been on more than 2 teams,
but he hasn't
good.
Stuck anywhere, and guys that are good up the middle stick.
Yeah.
I just have to trust, and DJ, I want to see what you think. Like, I just have to trust when they say, "Oh, this is the perfect system for him," that this is actually the perfect system for him. DJ doesn't buy into
I mean, what are they supposed to say, right? Like, this is the second best system for him. I mean, that's what I'm kind of.
All the other systems have been terrible. It wasn't his fault.
I mean, you know, so at the D tackle, you're gonna have Foley Fantashaski, and then you're gonna have Mario Edwards. So Foley played in the system before, and he's known for being a run stopper. So my thing is, all right, if they can have success at stopping the run and get them in 3rd and longs, okay, now you can have Will and Daniil tee off. But if you can't, now it gets a little tricky because it's 3rd and 5, right? You can just live in quick game and be able to get the ball out. Because again, like Shane was able to do that last year in week 2. Granted, knew everything and things of that nature. But I think, but again, like their receiving room is a little injured because Josh Downs suffered an ankle injury earlier in camp. So we'll see if he plays this week. If he does play, we'll see how he even looks in that aspect. So there's a lot of chess matches to really pay attention to. But again, you know, the D tackle room is a question mark, and I haven't seen anything that make me feel like, all right, this is going to be a strength for them. I'm more with Will. I'm in wait and see mode when it comes to the D tackle room.
You guys stress about Will Anderson. Someone else is asking that. I'm not stressed, but I'm also like Christian Harris. We weren't really sure, and then all of a sudden IL for 4 weeks. So I don't think I'm stressed until I need to be. I don't know though.
If I hadn't seen him doing like these crazy warm-up workouts over on the side, I think I'd be a little worried.
Okay.
But just the workouts and the amount of time that he spent, like, because sometimes if you hear us say somebody's working out on the side, sometimes they do like 20 minutes, they go inside. They're done.
They don't do right.
Like Will was doing like the whole practice of like workouts and agility drills and testing the ankle and stuff, and then he'll kind of mosey over looking like he jumped in the pool. and he's like, oh, okay, watch a little bit of practice there at the end. It's like he's done enough that I feel pretty comfortable saying he's going to play. And I mean, 100% probably not, but, 90, 95%, I feel pretty comfortable.
Yeah, listen, you'd rather have Will. I think Will's going to play because I think even though you added Daniil, I do feel like the depth of the defensive line has regressed compared to last year. Because I think, losing Malik and losing Sheldon, like if you were without Will, you could still get a ferocious pass rush. Like I remember last year, Will didn't play against the Titans. They got 6 sacks that game. So you do need, like, this D-line is going to be really predicated on the health of Daniil and Will. If those two are out there, then the D-line can be effective. If they're not out there, I think the depth takes a massive hit because now you're pushing guys in to starting roles that aren't necessarily equipped to be in a starting role to where, opposing offenses are going to be, concerned about them, honestly speaking. Because, again, let's say if you lose Will, let's say Will doesn't play. You have Daniil, you have Foley, you have Mario. Let's say you put DB, which is
Derek Barnett,
right? You can really just put extra attention on Daniil and then let all your other blockers go one-on-one with everybody else, and he'll be just fine. Like, and that's no shade to them, but that's just the reality of what this defensive line is in 2024 compared to 2023, where if you left Sheldon one-on-one, he can get you multiple sacks like he did against the Titans or he did against the Bengals. Big loss. Yeah.
Big loss.
He's going to be a legitimate big loss, especially on third and long down situations, because he got a lot of one-on-ones and he was able to make it happen. And Malik was really good at collapsing pockets because he's really good at getting off the ball and penetrating. He just wasn't great at finishing because he has shorter arms. So that and
combine talk comes into play.
Right. So like that was it. But like he could really cause havoc. So they're gonna need Will and Daniil to be as healthy as possible throughout the season, because without, like, if one of them goes down, now you can kind of shift and slide everybody to that one premier pass rusher, and then now you're gonna have Derek Stingley, Kamari, Jalen covering just for a second longer, a second and a half longer, and sometimes all quarterbacks might need to get
just real quick to everybody watching. Just please like the video, share the video, and chime in as well here on YouTube as well. Kickin It With Kunkel, DJ Bien-Aime, Cody Stoots, HoustonFootball.com, and ESPN.
What he said. I'm just saying what he said. What he
Ditto.
Said. Ditto.
I want to go big picture with this team for people that aren't like, it's like so in the trenches as we are. As we're talking like, middle of the line, Christian Harris, Jalen Petrie. I want to get to in a little bit here as well. But like overall, like this team's going to be good.
Yeah,
and they're going to be like fun as hell to watch.
Right.
Because I don't know if they're going to create the push on the offensive line for the running game. I don't know. I hope they do, because then forget about it, because then you got all aspects of the offense clicking. Right. But offensively in the NFL, if you have a quarterback and you have some good receivers, which they have all the good receivers and a tight end and a running back, like this team's going to be fun to watch. Is this going to be the best team that you've been able to cover here at the Texans, or at least the most fun to watch? Where does it rank?
I mean, I think the excitement level's never been higher for this team and this organization outside of the first season when it was football's back. And then the talent level. I mean, this is about as deep as it goes. And I was thinking about it the other day. It's like, okay, what's the closest from a talent level perspective? And it was like the 2012 Houston Texans team. And it's like, okay, Watt's kind of started to come on a little bit, but he hasn't quite ascended to where he was going to be just yet. He wasn't 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, J.J. Watt. And they had some other nice pieces, and like Matt Schaub was a good quarterback, but Matt Schaub is not C.J. Stroud,
right?
And then they had some Andre, but that was kind of it from a receiver standpoint. Right. And they had Owen Daniels, but it was Andre and then Owen Daniels. Now it's you got to go 3 guys deep before you can get to the tight end. You talk about Dalton Schultz, so it's a loaded team. It's a fun team. And sometimes I'm rooting for him to not run the ball. I'm like, air it out. That's fine. Throw it. Throwing the ball is more fun. It's the home run of football.
Right. I think the team obviously has a lot of talent. I think, the 2018 the 2019 Texans team, I think it compares closely. Obviously not. We'll see how the season finishes out before we start putting them in that next bucket with the 2 teams that went to the divisional round. But I do think this team has potential to get to the AFC Championship game overall. Because, again, as Will said, right, if you have a quarterback, you have weapons with that quarterback, you always have a shot, right? Like, people thought the Rams weren't going to be good last year, but they had Matthew Stafford, they had Puka Nacua, and they had Cooper Kupp. And when you have that, you're always going to have a shot. Mm-hmm. Like last year, right, with the Buffalo Bills, they had all kinds of injuries across the board on defense, even some on offense, but they still had Josh Allen, they still had Stephon Diggs, they had Gabe Davis. They had their tight ends. They had James Cook. And they were able to still make things happen because this NFL is so offensive-driven now that if you have weapons, you always have a shot. So I think now, based on what the Texans have, if they can run the ball, I think their ceiling kind of resides on how effective their run game is. Because if they're just totally relying on C.J. Stroud and the receivers, that just always limits how far you can go, because you're eventually going to find a team that can – scheme against you, because it's not about, all right, how can we stop you in September or October? It's going to be about, all right, how can we stop you in January? And by that time, they'll know all your plays. They don't know when you call it and what situations on third down, second down. So everybody will know what to expect. But what you can't prepare for, even if you know what's coming, and if you can't stop the run, then there's nothing you can do.
Right.
So if they can be balanced in that aspect where they can still run the ball with effectiveness, now that just makes them impossible to bear. Because imagine C.J. Stroud with those weapons in 2nd and 5 in January versus 3rd and 10, which they were a lot in against the Ravens.
Yep. Let's do this because I think a lot of people have different views on this. And so who's going to be the 1, 2, 3 wide receivers? I think this is the biggest fun debate with the Texans right now because it's really all there is. We're all on the same page with everything, which is a good sign. I think Tank Dell's going to be the number 1 wide receiver, most touchdowns, and then Nico Collins, and then Stephon Diggs. And I don't think it's going to be 1,300 down to 600. I think it's going to be all pretty tightly contested. I think Tank's a touchdown guy, and I think Stephon Diggs, I just don't know how healthy he'll be all season. I don't know why I say that. That's just my prediction.
I like it. I like to split it up here. I think Diggs going to have the most receptions.
Okay.
Nico's going to have the most yards, and Tank's going to have the most touchdowns.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Tank.
I just don't know how teams are going to consistently defend Tank in the red zone when they get down there. Now, it may just as simple as, hey, they're going to run the football in the red zone because Joe Mixon's a really solid red zone running back, and they can just power through with him. But, short red zone or, right inside the red zone, I just don't know how they're stopping Tank on a consistent basis when there's all that attention on those other guys. Too.
Yeah. I'm kind of again agreeing with you there, right? I think I think targets and receptions, Diggs, because he's gonna be in a slot. There's gonna be a lot of easy completions and easy targets. I do think Tank will probably lead in. I think yards per reception, probably touchdown. I think Nico in yards, but I could see a scenario by the end of the year Tank being wide receiver 1, mainly because CJ loves him to death. And I think that bond is gonna be so hard. It's gonna be hard for Nico and Diggs to overcome by the end of the year, and it's not a bad thing. I think it's just when that bond is like that, and Tank's game and CJ's game fits so well. I could see by the end of the year CJ, just leaning on Tank more.
Well, and if you think back to last year, there are more games where Tank and Nico are both on the field, and Tank has a big day. Whereas when Tank's gone, Nico had some big days. It's pretty rare if you look back last year that Tank and Nico had big days. And so I wonder if hey, maybe some of Nico's success was predicated on Tank was shut down, Tank was out. He missed a half a game here, missed a game there. You saying no? Okay.
I'm saying no.
All right.
No, because again, you had the Colts game, only receiver out there, still went crazy.
Yep.
Broncos game, only receiver out there, still went crazy. When both time went for 190, so I'm not necessarily sure. I think it might be reversed where Tank was able to go off because so much attention was on Nico because he wasn't. I think defensive coordinators view Nico as the one because I think the Broncos game was the most telling because at that point they were on a hot streak, and one thing that they were doing a lot of on 3rd downs was having Surtain follow the receiver and then just play whatever coverage they wanted to play behind Surtain, but Surtain was man to man, and to start the game he was following Nico. So I think to your point, it might have been Tank was feeding off of Nico, but I could see this year,
What about the fact that these guys are just studs and they get open no matter kind of who's around them and who's guarding them? Because remember in the Colts game, Nico, that 70-plus yarder just
that was
off the ham, and everyone kind of knew. And yet, to your point earlier, Colts don't have anybody that can guard these guys.
Yeah.
And we're going to see that across the NFL because most NFL teams don't have a shutdown corner, let alone 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think in terms of stopping them, you're just gonna need your DC's gonna have to be able to jump on Bobby's tendencies a little bit, and just see how they are on 3rd downs. Maybe it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, if they can rush CJ, that's the way you stop this.
Of course, right.
As every team, but that's really you're not locking down.
No.
This record, and then by the way, there's Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Joe Mixon catches the ball really
well.
Right.
It's gonna be fun. All right, we were gonna do the whole playoff thing. I don't want to do all that. How far will the Texans go? Not how far can they go? How far will they go? Who wants to go?
They're going to the AFC Championship game.
And they lose to
the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are the big bad till they're not the big bad.
That's fair.
Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, until that duo is not together, the Chiefs are there every year.
All right, so I want to make an amendment. I was on a podcast earlier in the summer. I said some stuff. I said some stuff. With Mina Khan's podcast. Great lady. I said the Colts win the division. The reports out of camp haven't been great regarding Anthony Richardson. So swapping my picks.
Okay.
Going with the Texans to win the division. Just because again, as you saw, because you were in there in Cleveland, from that week on throughout the rest of camp, the offense was pretty much clicking. And there weren't, that many hiccups. They had some couple of days where they had hiccups, but like you saw the potential. It was like, all right. Good luck to the team trying to stop this. So I'm gonna go with Texans. I think the season will end in the divisional round. Cause I still do think like their depth, because again, like injuries happen, and there's just certain spots that they can't afford injuries to, and it's just hard to predict that they're gonna stay. I just doubt they're gonna be like the Eagles in 2022, where the Eagles were basically like clean bill of health going to the Super Bowl, right, where everybody was available. And they're not a team that if they suffer injuries, they'll be able to like overcome it after a while once they get deeper into the playoffs. So I think there's some depth issues that I have concerns about. Whether on the D line, on the O line, because like if Laramie has to miss any time, I think the season's done. Like honestly, 'cause I think Laramie is that important. I think he's the second most important player on this team. And if he has to miss like let's say like 5-6 weeks, season's over. Season's completely done because like the backups. Like the drop off, because we've all seen that practice. When Laramie's out there, the offense looks like they can run the ball. CJ has a second longer to throw it. When he's not out there, they can't. There's times where they can't function. Like I remember the Rams practice, they started off hot, right? It was boom, 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 and then Laramie stepped out. It was, So like that's kind of like that. That's how important Laramie is to this offense to be able to run the ball and to be able to consistently throw the ball down the field and be able to consistently get explosive. So, so I do think, second round is probably where I think the season will end.
Yeah, I'm going they lose in the AFC Championship game to the Chiefs as well. Like until you beat them, I think they can win the divisional games. I think that those division games are like we saw the Browns, they got their ass whipped at NRG. Like there are some disparities there. And then now if they got to the Super Bowl, it would be interesting because I think they can win the Super Bowl if they got there more than they can get out of the AFC Championship game.
The AFC's far tougher than the
NFC stinks.
So many great quarterbacks, great coaches.
Right.
I mean, your three longest tenured coaches are all in the AFC. It's Tomlin, it's Harbaugh, and Andy Reid.
Wow.
Like, I mean, and then they've all got, it feels like everybody's got a quarterback. Everybody's got a dude at wide receiver. Everybody's got a pass rusher. Like, the AFC is just so loaded with talent on the headset, at the quarterback spot, everything. It's so tough.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you can make it out of that, then you'll probably be the favorite to win the championship at that point. So, I mean, if the Texans can make a Super Bowl, then I would pick them to win.
This will sound like a homer bet. But if I were to make a bet on the season going in, I would bet C.J. Stroud MVP because of the odds. Like the odd, Mahomes is obviously at the top, and then Josh Allen's up there, which I don't think he's going to have an MVP type of season this year without the receivers around him. And then Jalen Hurts is there. But, if Saquon goes down, I wonder if how good that's going to be, or if Saquon's going to take touches away. I think C.J.'s the darling around the country right now. Like the media love him, and rightfully so. And there's so many weapons around him, and they're going to be a pass-first offense. So, like, odds dictating, like, get bang for your buck. I love the C.J. Stroud for MVP bet.
I think that's a good bet. I think Mahomes going to win, though.
Yeah, for sure. Like, he's the leader. Like, I wrote down, like, he's my MVP.
Yeah.
Chiefs beat 49ers. All chalk, no shocks. But there's a reason that consistently happens because they are the best. To wrap this up very quickly, Colts game, what's the prediction there?
The Texans beat them by about 10.
Damn.
I got Texans winning 27, like 21.
Yeah, I got Texans winning like 31-28. I think it's going to be a tight game. I think it's going to be an ugly game because I don't think that the defense is going to be – we always see bad defenses in the week one of the NFL because there hasn't been tackling. They haven't had the snaps. It's just kind of ugly. There's a lot of miscommunication type of deal. And I think that Jonathan Taylor continues to do what Jonathan Taylor does. Like, he's a really good running back. We're missing guys up the middle. It's going to be back and forth, but I think Anthony Richardson ultimately is not going to be nearly good enough to go toe-to-toe with C.J. Stroud.
I mean, if he's going to get 28 points, he might.
But I think it's a running game.
Oh, okay.
Like, I think So it's going to be you can run with Jonathan Taylor up and down the field, and then Anthony Richardson kind of in the red zone is a threat. Whereas C.J. Stroud is going to just cook all day long. People are excited that you've switched your pick.
I mean, the report. I can't lie. My eyes told me too much. I read the reports. The reports aren't great.
He was saying all sorts of crazy things. He's like, Indianapolis has better barbecue. Indianapolis has better steaks. Indianapolis has better seafood.
Indianapolis probably does.
Spicy shrimp.
They might have better. They might. I don't think
they might have better what?
They might have better steak. I like their steak.
Steak kind of all the same. All comes from the same ranches.
At this point, it is because it's so easy to get the steak wherever it needs to be. Like 50 years ago, when it was very regional, I'm sure it was.
That's a good point.
All right, we're gonna wrap on that. All right, Cody Stoots, DJ Bien-Aime, thanks you guys for watching. Kicking It With Kunkel again. We're gonna have another episode next week. This will also be out throughout the week as well on Friday on Fox Local. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.